Do you know how to actually play with your kids? I know this sounds simple and quite effortless, right? Well, just play with them. How hard could it be? Yet, for many parents, this is something that they've forgotten how to do. It doesn't feel natural anymore, and it's even something that parents can dread, right? They dread it when their child comes up and it's like, hey, do you want to play? It's like, no, right? A Darth Vader, no, anything but play. Let's do a project. Let's cook something. Just not play, please. They dread it to such an extent. Now, I said this is something that they have forgotten, okay? And this is important to understand. As you grow older, as you become an adult, right, it is conditioned into us, and it is a mainstream belief that play is something that is childish, right? You're an adult now. You don't have time to play. You don't have the luxury to have fun. You must be organized, disciplined, and you must succeed. That is what being an adult is all about. Oh, you see those people laughing over there, having fun, just vibing? That's failure, not success. For success, you want to be a successful adult, you must just hustle and work and go from task to task to task. Okay, we become very serious. We live very rigid lives, something that I talked about in a previous episode. Play for an adult tends to just be consuming, right? If you think of play, what do most people say? Well, watching TV, playing a video game, right? Taking some time for me and scrolling through social media, where ultimately what kind of play is that? It's you being on the receiving end. You're consuming the play. You're not producing it. You don't have to put in any effort. You just have to sit there, right? Let's go to the movies. I'm just going to sit there. That's what I do for fun. So it's very hard to shift out of consuming play into producing play. And once more, there's that label that play is just immature. So we tend to disown it and ignore it and just banish it ultimately. Now, let go of that label. If you actually believe that, right? Playing, that's for kids. No, that's for adults too. Do you want to know the true sign of success? It's not how serious someone is or how disciplined they are. It's how much fun they are having. How much are they laughing? The more someone laughs, the more someone's able to just play. That's a true sign of success. Okay, so first thing to be aware of, do you have perhaps a negative label? Are you just consuming play as opposed to producing play? And that would be something to bring your awareness to and work on. Okay, but play is very important. And the first thing that I want to say here, and key to understand this, is that play is something that has no outcome. This is also why it's so challenging for adults. Once more, we go from task to task to task. When do you do something just for the sake of doing it? That's play. There's no goal when you play, right? If I'm playing with my daughters, it's not like, this is a test. Did you pass the play test? No, there's no goal at all. There's zero purpose except to play, right? And if you think of adults, the way this tends to manifest is in vibing. I'm sure you've heard this word, vibing. Right? When you're just hanging out with someone, a friend, and you're just vibing together. You're just talking for the sake of talking. It's not one of those conversations where you're trying to figure out a solution to a problem, right? You're not talking about a task. You're just shooting the shiz, as they say. That's it. What's the purpose? There is no purpose. The purpose is that it is purposeless. And good audit within yourself here as an adult. Can you easily vibe? If you hang out with your friends, people you know, even strangers, can you get into that zone where you're just vibing? You're not thinking, you're just in the moment. And the whole purpose of vibing is simply to experience the other person and vice versa. That's why you do it. It's not about the topics either, by the way. Some adults are like, I can only have interesting conversations if the topics are interesting. No. You got to tap into the emotional layer, right? For myself, I'm not that big into sports. Okay, I did play basketball from the age of 8 till 16. But I'm not that big into sports. And there's people that I hang out with, family members, so on and so forth, who are into sports. They're really into it. Now, if we just look at it from a logical perspective, you could say, well, talking about sports with them isn't accomplishing anything, so that is not a useful interaction. Well, wrong. You got to get out of that must accomplish, next task, success. Get out of that. It's not about the topic. I will have a blast talking to them about sports, even though I don't really care for it that much. Why? Because it's not about the topic. It's about the experience. We're joking around. We're bonding. We are connecting. Now, as an adult, a challenge I would give you is go out, if you have trouble with this, with a friend or two. You could go out to any kind of social venue. You could go to a bar. Sit down somewhere and challenge, only drink water or nothing with alcohol. So stay sober. And you must sit there for 2 to 3 hours. So everyone's sober, 2-3 hours, and the conversation must be meaningless. You can't talk about goals. You can't talk about solutions. You can't talk about personal development, etc. You just got to shoot the shiz. Are you able to do it, or is it awkward? It's like, oh, well, here we are. Hey, well, there's good information. There's a good way to actually practice vibing. And this is the same energy that you ultimately bring into play with your children, right? You could also think of vibing, by the way, where it's more horizontal, not vertical, right? 2 types of conversation. The vertical is we accomplish this, we get this, we get this, we get to success, right? What's the solution? What's the task? Horizontal is let's just flow and focus on the deeper layer, not the agenda-based style conversation, right? And it's important for kids too, because if you really put yourself in their shoes and you think about their experience alive, well, most of the time they are being evaluated, right? They're competing for the good job. That's their experience, right? When they do something, it's always looking up the parent, whoever's raising them, whoever's around. It's like, did I do it right? Is it okay? Did I do a good job? Yes, good job. Next thing, did I do it right? Oh, no, you messed that up. You got to, oh, okay. Like that's their experience. It's, did I do it well? Yes or no? Please, I want to do it well so you like me more. That's their reality. And in most activities that they do, that's the measure of success. It's how well they do it. But not with play. That's the one activity where there is no measure of success. There is no did I do it well. It's the one thing that you really cannot mess up. And there's such a freedom in that. It gives them the opportunity to just be, right? To express themselves, to create, and not worry about the, did you do it right? Not have to worry about someone looking over their shoulder, judging. It's a judgment-free zone. Now, what this means for you as a parent is hold back from praise and judgment, both during play. During play, this is what I personally do, it's not a time to correct them on anything. Meaning, it's not like, okay, we're playing, like, as an example, I was playing Legos with my daughter. And we were following the instructions for a while. Okay, I actually got this massive Star Wars Millennium Falcon with like over 7,000 pieces. And she's helping me with that. We're inching away. So we were at first starting to follow the manual. And after a while, we took a break. And there's all the extra pieces that are out. And she just started building her own things. Now, what would a serious parent do? Ha ha ha, no. That's not what the manual says, young lady. No. You can't improvise. You are playing wrong. You're doing it wrong. As opposed to no. That's play. Now, as an adult, if you're really into Legos and you're like, well, that's blasphemy. You must follow the instructions. Then don't do it with your kids. If you want to do it with your kids, no. During that time, it's judgment-free, including praise. It's not like you're playing, like say I'm playing figurines with, again, my kids. And I'm like, oh, good job doing that with your character. Good job. None of that. No good job, no judgment, no correcting, just flowing. Just this pure state of freedom. And what it does for them is it also allows them to practice making decisions from the inside, where instead of worrying, does my decision get praise or approval, disapproval? Or what will people think? It's what do I think? It ultimately allows them to start, again, drawing state from within. The same as I talked about in the previous episode, asking them, how do you feel about it before jumping to the praise? It brings their point of orientation within. Same with play, right? They're playing and it's like, okay, I have two characters. They could go right, they could go left. What's the choice? Well, because it's judgment-free zone, they can practice making their own choices. It comes from them. It's from within. And then they can practice producing play versus consuming, right? But it's very important to, and this is in my opinion, withhold praise and withhold judgment. And realize that play isn't this surface level thing. We tend to view it that way, right? Oh, you're just playing. Oh, that's the easy part. Or, oh, it's just play. It's not that important. It's very important. Once more, what I talked about here, but also it allows you to truly connect with them, to ultimately be in tune with them. And once more, with play, you got to start thinking more emotionally, less logically. Because logically, you're like, well, no, the way I connect with them is I ask them questions and I get information. We have deep logical talks. Yeah, that's at one level. But there's another level where what are you ultimately doing when you're playing, right? Say I'm playing figurines with my daughters. Well, what are we doing? We are ultimately creating a shared reality. That's what we're doing. That's what happens when you play and you use your imagination. It's me and say my daughter, right, my eldest daughter, and we are connected. And together, we're living in this shared imaginary reality, and we're massively in sync with each other, in sync with the stories, the characters talking to each other, where the overall plot is going. We are improvising off each other. We're pinging off each other, and you got to be massively in tune with the other person to do that. The same with when you vibe with other adults, when you're truly in that zone. And when you're really vibing, by the way, you're outside of your head. It's like time flies by. You are just in sync. You are joking. Everything you're saying, just building. You're creating a shared reality. And I mean, what more could you want when it comes to connecting with another person, right? It's one of the best relationship builders, in my opinion. And it requires a lot of social intelligence. You got to be able to really connect with the other person, put yourself in their shoes, not just go by your agenda, right? And you'll see this with some children who don't have this ability, who perhaps don't play much, or not in that sense, right? Their play is either consuming play or doing different tasks, like let's bake something, let's make a project, let's do a painting thing where you will be graded at the end. No. If it's really this kind of free play, they have the chance to practice it. But yeah, if you see a kid who can't do this with others, right? Like they'll play together and it's like, no, it's my way. They're just not in sync with the other person. In my opinion, that's not too good. That's a lack of social intelligence, right? To really play, you got to go into their world, connect with their world, get in tune with their interests. And it's something that you practice. It's something that you learn, right? For myself, in terms of my own journey as a person, I had massive anxiety, by the way, growing up. A lot of social anxiety. I was always judging and filtering myself, and I had to learn how to vibe. This is before having kids. I had to learn how to vibe, and it's something that you can learn. You can practice it. Same with your kids. It's a very important skill, or ultimately way of being, that play allows them to practice. And this takes things a layer deeper, which is in order to play, you must feel safe. The same with vibing in terms of adults. You must feel safe. I'm sure you've experienced it where you're talking to someone and perhaps you're a little anxious. I remember myself back in the day, extremely anxious. I never felt safe. If I was talking to someone, I was in my head and the whole time I was thinking, what do they think of me? Did I say the right thing? Is this interesting enough? Am I boring them? Am I saying too much? Am I not saying enough? Oh my God. That is going to stifle you and stifle that flow and stifle the vibe and stifle ultimately the play. So in order to play, you must feel safe. You can't be in your head. You can't be micromanaging. When you feel safe, you also have access to all of your faculties. and those are needed. I'm sure you've had this experience where you might talk to someone who you believe is a bit outside of your league, whatever league that is, whether it's relationships, business, you name it. You place them above you, and in relation, you don't feel too confident, you don't feel too safe, and you have trouble flowing. Yet you talk to another person, right? You run out of things to say even. Yet you talk to another person where perhaps you consider yourself as being outside of their league, you never run out of things to say. That's what I'm talking about here. To play, you have to feel truly safe. Now, if you have trouble playing with your kids, it can be beneficial to ask yourself, why don't I feel safe in this moment? What is blocking me? If you can't play, something's blocking you. You got to identify it and then let go of it. But it's a good question to ask. What's blocking me? No, I can't vibe with this person right now. What's blocking me? It's also why it's very important to work on your own self-confidence. The more confident you feel within, the more safe you feel, and the easier it is to have access to those faculties and just flow, as opposed to being stuck in protection mode. And with your kids too, when you see the playfulness come out, it can be beneficial to ask yourself, well, what's making them feel safe in this moment? You'll learn more about them. You'll also see when they have trouble playing or they don't want to play, what is perhaps not making them feel safe in this moment. But in order to play, you have to feel safe. Now, what do kids do when they play? You could break it down to two general things. One is mental play, and that would be, say, playing with their imagination, right? More so with the mind, creating stories, creating an experience. That's one category. The other is more physical play, where they engage with the body, right? Say you're at a restaurant or something, and you'll see they'll want to just kind of run around, and they might just do the same pattern again, running around the table. You're at a park, they'll just go down the slide, up the slide, down the slide, up the slide, down the slide. Or on a trampoline, or passing a ball to each other, back and forth. It's some kind of body movement. But those are the two main categories. Now, some tools to help with this is what I personally do. And I'm a bit more big on the imagination side, the mental side of play. That's what I resonate with. Again, I love the physical play too, but I've always been more imagination. And you can look within your kids, right? It's like, okay, are they more imagination play or physical play, right? Mental or physical, which one? It'll allow you to connect with them much more. Now, with imagination play, the mental play, the vibe that I personally try to bring, like say my daughter's like, let's play. Or say I want to go up to my daughters and introduce play. Well, the mindset that I come from is the whole check this out. It's not, do you want to play? It's, hey, check this out. And boom, the play starts. That's the vibe. Check this out. Some formats you can rely on, but ideally this should just be from you in the moment, but you could view these as your training wheels. One would be role plays. Very simple. You're like, how do I play with my kid? Just create some kind of role play. And it could be anything, absolutely anything. So you could rock up and say, okay, like say I go to one of my daughters, I'm like, okay, you're now Elsa. Like check this out. I don't say this, check this out. It's in the vibe. I'm like, you're now Elsa and I'm Anna, two characters from the movie Frozen. All right, you're Elsa, I'm Anna. I could even say it as we're walking up the stairs, by the way. I do this. We start walking up the stairs in the house, and I'm like, okay, you're Elsa, I'm Anna, and we're now climbing up a mountain of ice. And now I introduce play. Something as basic as that. It doesn't have to be scheduled either. Just throw it in there. And now instead of just walking up the stairs, we are climbing up a mountain. And suddenly a storm is coming. And oh my gosh, if we go down, if we turn around, there's the ice monster from Frozen following us. Go, 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 go. Brings in the play. That's a role play. We are now role playing that we are the princesses in Frozen. Do that. Just role play. And it could be anything, by the way. So there's one little tool you can just fall on. There's a training wheel. Role play. You'll also notice, little side note, that once you start doing this and they get a feel for the role playing, they'll start introducing their own role plays, and it also gives you a lot of insight into their reality and what matters to them, what they care about. right? As an example, right, my eldest daughter was going to daycare for a while, socializing with other kids. And we'd do role plays, like she'd come back from daycare and she would want to role play that she is the teacher, right? So like, everyone sit down, and she would ultimately reenact what she did that day. And that's interesting. It's like, oh, she's curious about that or experiencing that. So role plays, like, let them also come up with it. Or, you know, if we go to a restaurant, like we did this tonight, actually, I put them down. They're like, she's like, okay, I want to play with, she has all these stuffies in her room. She's like, we're going to do restaurant game. So she puts her blanket on the floor, and we have all the stuffies around, and we all go through everyone's order. And she's the waitress and the cook and also the person eating there. My other daughter's there with the other stuffies, and my wife's there, and we're all sitting around eating this imaginary dinner at a restaurant, and it gets her to experience that. But that's so simple, role play. Or building on the role play, it's the whole like, what if? Like, imagine this. What if the floor suddenly was lava? It's a role play. It's so easy to do. Now, the next tool or training wheel would be conspiracy theories. What are conspiracy theories? It's anything that's you and your kids versus the world. That's it. You versus the world. And it goes hand in hand with role plays, right? So one example could be, say we're at a restaurant, there's a lot of people. I might look over to one of my daughters and say, okay, the fork right there is now a magical fork. Now make sure you keep it safe, because there are bad guys out there looking for it. And suddenly it's me and her versus the world protecting this magical fork. That there, conspiracy. And what does that also do? It reinforces the bond, the connection between you and your kids. You can also spice it up. And I'd suggest doing that personally, by the way. I have seen a lot of parents do these role plays, but it's just very flat, right? Like, it goes back into this type of activity building where it's like, okay, role play. You know, you're the teacher, I'm the student, or we're both teachers and we're doing this. And it's just very linear. If you think of the scenario as a movie, it's just like, and then this happens, and then we do this task, and then we go outside. Hey, we're going to play pretend that we are gardening right now. We plant the flower, and then we plant the other flower. What color is it? The first one was blue, the second one was red. Okay, the next one is pink. That's good. Yeah, it's better than nothing. That's great. Do it. But my preference is spicing it up. And I spice it up with a little bit of push-pull, right? Push-pull, a little bit of peace and drama, meaning it's okay, we're doing the flowers, and suddenly a storm is coming. And now the storm is gone. And then a storm is back. That up, down, spice it up. That is something I personally like. It spices everything up. It changes this just very flat, predictable, things get better and better and better, and the movie's over, to a dramatic and captivating movie. And then what I personally do with all these tools and this whole dynamic is I look for the patterns that my children like. Meaning there might be one scenario that they really, really like, and we do that one again and again and again, right? With slight variations. I remember there was a time where we would role play that we were mermaids, right? And we were swimming down to find this treasure, but it was protected by these big sharks. And that pattern scenario, my daughter just loved. And then everything we'd link back to the sharks. Or even if we were doing some other scenario, like say even tonight, we were doing this restaurant game before bed. If she was still into the shark thing, I'd link it to the shark thing. It's like, we're all at the restaurant, but suddenly there was a noise. It's the sharks with the treasure. Like all these callbacks. And don't think that they'll get bored of a pattern, right? If you even link it to the physical play, what's a lot of physical play? It's simply a pattern. It's go up, down the slide, up, down the slide. And it's like, again, the comfort and the repetition of the physical play. My nephews, for example, they're into baseball right now. And they'll just go out and, it's like, throw the ball, hit the ball, run, throw the ball, hit. It's like this practice where they have a basketball hoop, they'll shoot the ball. It's like this kind of routine. In a way, some kind of rhythm, right? It's like, okay, shoot, shoot, shoot. Same here with the mental play and the imagination. Find a pattern, boom, play it again. Imagine like your favorite scene from a movie. You wouldn't mind seeing it again. Or you wouldn't mind seeing a similar theme in other movies, right? For example, like Pocahontas, Avatar, was it Raised by Wolves? Same plot, same, exact same. But hey, you enjoy all movies. So do that with the play. You can recycle them and tweak them. Don't think that it's boring. Again, they love it, and they're also familiarizing themselves with it. For them, everything is still new, right? Unlike us adults, it's like, seen it, next. No, they're like, oh yeah, more. Let me familiarize myself with the different texture of this experience. So these are really some things that I keep in mind when it comes to play. Again, the best tell is if you can't vibe with other adults, you will have trouble playing. You got to learn how to vibe and play. They go hand in hand. All the work that I did on myself personally when it comes to learning communication skills, letting go of that anxiety, learning how to vibe with people, same skills that go into playing. It's literally the same. The same things, the same emotion, like we're playing around with it, we're building. It's just for the sake of it. And it's also a moment to just quiet that logical mind. And it feels great. So keep this in mind. You have the tools, the mindsets, the challenge when it comes to vibing. Remember too, no praise, no judgment. And what's the purpose? The fact that there is no purpose. It's actually valuable in life that not everything is to accomplish something. Yin and yang, right? Expansion, contraction. You need both. Tasks, no tasks. Productive, not productive. And it really, strengthens the relationship. It really does. And do not bring your phone into it. Don't bring any social media. Truly be present. It's one of the most powerful ways to connect with your children. In a way, you could think that vibing or even just laughing is one of the most powerful ways to connect with a human being, whether it's a kid or not. You meet a stranger, as soon as you laugh about something, it's like there's something about this laughter, this vibe, this non-logical resume exchange that just, there's a certain magic in it. And if you'd like some inspiration here too, watch the show Bluey. I talked about it in the previous episode. If you're like, how do I play? Well, look at how they play in the show. Now, I know it's not a real show. It's not real life. But draw inspiration from anything and everything. Ultimately, when you're watching that show, if there are things that you like in terms of what they're doing, right? Say you see the parents playing with their kids, creating some scenario. If you like it, sure, you could copy it, sure. Or simply ask yourself, and this is what I prefer, what's my version of that? Look beneath it. Like, okay, well, instead of the surface thing that they're playing with, what's the theme? What's the pattern? What does it hit on? And how can I create this and make my own version of it in my life with my kids? But you can draw a lot of inspiration from Bluey. If you get too serious too, look at Bluey. Again, why are people so drawn to it? It's like one of those popular shows. Why? Because it reminds them, it's like, oh, you can be a serious adult and have fun. Oh, you can work hard with a smile. It's not this or that. And even think, for yourself too, this is personally what shocks me and a lot of people. It's baffling how many people say that, and this wasn't necessarily, my experience growing up, especially teenage years with the anxiety, but a lot of people say, oh, the best time of your life was when I was a kid, right? When I hear someone say that, I'm like, what? What do you mean the best time of your life was when you were a kid? That's like saying, oh, since then, life's just been going downhill. I'm just on this downward fall. Well, no, if that was the best time, then rekindle that vibe, reconnect with it, bring it into your adult life. You don't have to be all serious. Have fun, goof around. It's great. Again, even in my work or what I'm recording here, this moment, this podcast, I'm playing, I'm having fun, I'm just vibing. This is play. It's sure there's some bullets and some notes of things I want to talk about, but I'm just flowing. This whole part here that I talked about, just flow. Same thing. Say my daughters ran in right now. It's like, here we go. I think I heard a noise over there. Are you ready? Let's check it out, everyone. Just like that. And now we're in a role play where we're going to check out this noise. I was swimming too earlier today with my eldest daughter. And same thing, right? It's like we're in the water and we're in the shallow end of the pool. And suddenly I'm like, we're in the jungle here. We're in the water in the jungle. You just throw in the situation. You don't have to build up. You don't have to say, time to play. Just throw it in there. And again, with the examples I just threw out here, notice how it also falls on this. It falls on the role play. It also falls on the conspiracy theories, right? It's like, okay, it's me and her in the jungle, just us. We're in this jungle, imagination. It's push-pull, right? There's ups and downs. It's not just flat. So look, now we're in the jungle. Look at the beautiful trees around us in the water. Like, no, spice it up a bit. And then I always make sure, once more, with the attunement we talked about, connecting to the other person, I'm not doing it all. That too, if you're drained and exhausted when you're playing, even if you watch this, you're like, I do all those things, but it's so draining, I don't like it. Well, then you're carrying, most likely, the majority of the load. And ultimately, you're over-dominating the play. Remember, you're creating a shared experience, a shared reality, shared equally. You can't be like, okay, 90% of the story is mine. Right? Like, say, I'm like, we're in the water, it's the jungle, and we're looking for, back to the same patterns, a treasure. And she doesn't say anything, and all she's doing is just experiencing me, and ultimately I'm dictating the story. That's no fun. So also make sure you pause. Give them the space to partake. Right? Funny enough, as adults too, people are like, I'm scared of, I always run out of things to say. Well, pause a bit. An interaction isn't just a one-person show. You playing with your kid, it's not the you show that they sit down and consume. No, they partake in it. They produce. They play with that producing side of things. So pause. And I will also at times ask them, and then what happens? So I'll do that too. You don't have to be like, pause and just stare. I'll be like, and then what happens? But even when I say, and then what happens? It's like, and then what happens? Like, you got to commit to, bring the passion, right? And be curious in terms of the storylines that they throw in, what they say, what they bring to the table, their interests. Again, you learn so much about each other in that connection, really about the connection. And I guess speaking about connection, another little fun anecdote. Last night, my wife went out, and I was with my daughters alone. And I put my youngest daughter down, and then I stayed up a little later with my eldest daughter. And it was awesome, just that one-on-one time. If you can schedule it, one-on-one time. Oh. And I guess with the connection, what I was going to say is, I also personally find it important to have those real conversations with your kid. And that's what we did last night. It wasn't just play, or, oh, let's do this fun thing. We're going to go see this person in the restaurant, and let's do this, and what do you think of this, and learn, or what. That's great. But then every now and then I do like checking in on the more serious matters. Again, like having real conversations. Meaning even dropping, if you have it, the, kind of talking to your kid voice. Like tonalities can change. Parents can have completely different personalities when they talk to their kids. At times, just drop that and have a real conversation. And I like checking in, again, not over the top, because then it gets a little paranoid and thinking about it. Back to that book, Bad Therapy, read it. But I like checking in and just saying like, so, hey, and this is me personally, I check in and I ask her, I'm like, hey, so how you doing? How's life going ultimately? I know that's something for myself I wish people would ask me more often. Like, how is your life going? How you doing with life? And for it to be real. Instead of, hey, how's it going? Good. How's it going? No, none of that. And not just talking about, again, activities or tasks or problems to solve, but, hey, how's life going? Do you like life in this moment? Are you struggling? It going well? What do you think? How you doing? How you doing with this crazy thing, this crazy experience that you're in? Now, I won't verbalize it per se like that. Like, how's life going? Right? Especially at that age, it's like life and death. No, but I'm like, so hey, how you doing? How you doing? Like, how you really doing? How do you feel? Like really checking in. And last night I asked her, and I really was proud of myself for asking it. And I like the fact that I asked it. I'm going to definitely do this again. But it was the first time I did. I asked her, do you have any questions for me? Just out of the blue. I'm like, hey, do you have any questions for me? Now, for any outsider who's not parents, like, well, what do you mean? It's so obvious to ask that. But no, as a parent, for me, it really wasn't. Right? Like, I'd answer any questions. I'm always asking, like, what do you think, et cetera? Sure. But I never, like, opened the door to be like, okay, do you have any questions for me? And I told her, you can ask me about anything you want in life. And I'll tell you anything. And I would just see her eyes, boom. And I feel like we hit a deeper level of connection. Now, funny enough, the first thing that she asked me is, Daddy, why do you snore? You can ask anything about life, child. Why do you snore? Now, I didn't used to snore, but I guess I do now, at least to some extent. And I told her I'd tell her everything. And what I told her, and I'm like, a part of me believes that might be the reason, by the way. When I was 16, I got hit in the nose just by boom, someone's hand. And the way it hit me, my nose just started gushing with blood. And ever since then, I'm like, well, maybe that's why. Right? Maybe there's this deviated septum or something, maybe. But anyway, I didn't go that graphic, but I shared that story. And then it's so funny how she's like, immediately after, she's like, Dad, maybe when I go to school, when I'm older, someone's going to hit me in the nose and I'll snore too like you. Side note. But then it actually, that was the first one. Then it got more serious and allowed her to open up about just general fears and concerns where she's like, well, what if you lose me? Right. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? She's like, well, what if I just go far away and I go further and further and further and further away? What if you lose me? And you can see like, oh, interesting. Like beyond just the fun day-to-day experience, there's these concerns. And I just found that angle was a great way to actually open the door and ultimately to set the floor for that to come out, right? For her to share that. And then of course I just said like, comforted her. It's like, well, no matter how far you go, I'll always find you. And just that's enough, like that confirming like, oh, I feel safe. I'm safe, right? Even if I'm further away, even if my dad goes and travels and does an event somewhere, I am safe. I actually use this "you are safe" line in times of tension too, right? Like say, it's one of those situations where maybe you're upset. It's like, okay, hey, no, enough of that. And then they get upset. I'll tell them in those moments where there's, again, that emotion of perhaps anger. I'll say, hey, even when Daddy's angry, you are still safe and I still love you. Hey, even right now, you're still safe. I still love you. So it just reinforces, like, it's not attached. It's not this conditional thing. When my parents are angry, they don't love me. When they're happy, they love me. It's like, no, you're still safe and I still love you. Okay, it's like, I love you no matter what. And she's 4. It was interesting. It actually got even deeper. And she's like, well, Dad, where was I before? No, she said, do you have pictures of Mommy when she was little like me? And I said, well, ask Mom, or you can ask Grandma, and I'm sure they have pictures. And then she takes it a level deeper, and I didn't expect it. She's like, where was I when Mommy was little like me? Where was I? Right? Where were you before you were born? And the answer that I gave her is it's going to make a joke. I opened her mind up to life and gave her the real answer about life and death, and now she's worried. No, of course not. The answer which my mother told me, and I remembered it in that moment as a kid, is, you were just a twinkle in my eye. And I really liked that answer. And she paused for a second and gave me a hug, and it was like I could cry thinking about it. It was like, oh, amazing. But I like that. It's like, yeah, have those real conversations. The same with my youngest, right? She's 1.5. She'll be 2 in September. And she talks a bit, but it's not full sentence, of course. And I can fall into that tendency at times to, have that baby talk where it's not a full sentence either, right? It's like, come this way. Like you kind of simplify the talk for them to understand, which I think is helpful too. But at times break that and actually talk to them as if you talk to an adult, not topic wise, but vibe wise. So like, hey, so how you doing? Like full sentences and not babying it down at all. And it was surprising how much she understood. And I was like, wow, the babying it down made me project onto you that you are less mature than you actually are. So I think at times, just bringing that real authenticity into it can be quite powerful in terms of connection too. And I guess I'll wrap it with this. Speaking of, again, like those deep, where was I before I was born? She'll also, occasionally my daughter will come up and say the most random things. And one of my favorite things she said is, and I'll wrap it with this. So out of the blue, she comes up to me. She's like, Dad, 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 Dad. And I look over, I'm like, yeah? She's like, Dad. And it was this excitement and even a smile. She's like, Dad, one day, all my teeth are going to fall out and new ones are going to grow in. Just out of the blue. I never talked about that with her ever. I'm like, how did you learn this? And what? And what a weird way of putting it. But also, yeah, you're right. So, hey, I hope you enjoyed. Until next time.